Inevitably, when you're creating automation, there's a great chance that your robot will encounter circumstances it's not expecting, it won't know what to do, and it will be prevented from achieving its objective. In those cases, the robot will throw an error. This section is about exception handling. If you don't already understand the basics of exception handling, I recommend that you check out my RPA Tech Primer course, because I won't go into great detail about the fundamentals here. I'm simply going to show you how to use the try-catch activity to handle exceptions. To demonstrate how exception handling works, I'm going to create a brand new blank project and call it Exception Handling Demo. I'll copy and paste that into the description and click Create. I'm going to pin my activities open here so I can access them easily. And as usual, the first thing I'll start with is a sequence. I'll rename this the whole process. And I'll drag in 3 more sequences that simulate doing some work. I'll call this Objective 1 and click to rename this to Objective 2 and Objective 3 respectively. Control mouse wheel to zoom out a little bit so we can see the whole thing. So this is an oversimplified robot that does a process containing 3 different objectives. And of course, when I run the robot, my goal would be to have all 3 of these objectives occur successfully. To simulate work, I'll drag an assign activity into Objective 1, and I'll right-click to create a variable, and I'll call this Objective 1 Data, and hit Return. For the value, I'll type Objective 1. Then I'll grab a log message activity, click and drag that as my second activity in Objective 1, and I'll type out the value is :space plus, and then I'm going to copy and paste that variable here, .toString, and of course my log is going to contain the value is Objective 1. Now I'm going to click on log message and Control-click on assign and use Control-C to copy those 2, and I'll paste them here in Objective 2. You can see right away I get an error that says Objective 1 data is not declared, and that's because the Objective 1 data variable, if I click on this, has a scope of Objective 1. And that's this activity right here. So once we move outside of that activity, this activity can't see that variable. So I'll simply delete this, right-click and create a new variable called Objective 2 data. And I'll change this value to Objective 2. And down here I'll change this one to Objective 2 as well. And now all of my errors go away. Zooming out again so we can see everything, my goal here is to create a process that has 3 objectives, and they're just simple things, so I can have a robot to run. I'm going to click on that one and Control-click, and then Control-C to copy and paste these into Objective 3. So we have 3 different objectives doing something very similar. I'll do the same thing here. Right-click to create a new variable, call this Objective 3 data. Hit Return, change this to Objective 3, and of course change this to Objective 3 as well. So now I have 3 activities that are going to log something when the robot runs. Since these 3 activities are so simple, there's a very low likelihood that any kind of an error will occur. So let's run the robot and see what happens. Clicking on Run here in the top left, the robot runs quickly and returns. I click my output down here. You can see that we've got our start message and our stop message, and we have these 3 expected messages being logged from each of our 3 activities. The robot worked great. So now let's see if we can simulate an error and cause the robot to fail before it completes. What I'm going to do is go to Objective 2 here, drop in another assign, and right-click in here to create a new variable, and I'll just call it Crash Me, and click over here. Now I'm going to grab this Objective 2 data variable and paste it in right there. Notice there's no validation here. And this should work fine, because if I click on my Variables tab, you'll see that Objective 2 is generic, and Crash Me is also generic. So to cause the error, I'm going to click on Crash Me and change this to an int 32. And if you have any programming experience at all, you know that when we try to assign a generic value that contains a string to an integer variable, there's going to be a problem. Let's run it and see what happens. As you can see, I get an error dialog that says main, which is this workflow, has thrown an exception. The source is assign, which is this assign activity that's currently hidden, and it says cannot convert generic value to system.in32. If we click to see the details, there's a lot more nasty stuff here. Click to OK that, and let's look at our output down here in the bottom left. You can see that Objective 1 succeeded, then we got the error, and we never see the output from Objective 3. So our robot effectively stopped working in the middle of Objective 2 here. Let's take a look at how we can use exception handling to ensure that our robot completes the entire workflow. I'm using my control mouse wheel to zoom back a little bit, and I'm going to click in my activities window here and type try. Notice we have try catch and retry scope. For this example, I'm going to click on try catch and drag it above Objective 2. Now I'm going to click on Objective 2, Control X to cut, and I'm going into my try catch activity and clicking in the try area here and using Control V to paste in my Objective 2 activity. So now you can see inside my try catch activity, it's going to try to do Objective 2, which contains all of those activities that it had previously. And we know this one is going to cause an error. The secret to using try catch is that down here at the bottom, we've got this thing called catch. And all we need to do is click on this add new catch link and then select any one of these desired exceptions to be able to catch that exception. Again, this isn't an exception handling fundamentals course, so I expect you to know that it's possible to create multiple catches to catch different kinds of exceptions. Or just use this generic exception to catch all of them. So I click on that, and now the next thing I need to do is click in this white space to the right, and it's important to realize that the try block has now been collapsed, and it's displaying this exception block for us to manipulate. I'm going to type in log message and click and drag a log message into my catch block. And I'll open my quotes and type in Objective 2 had an error. And notice that I can change the log level to warn, error, or fatal. In this case, I'm just going to use warn because I'm going to deem this as a non-fatal error. These log levels will have no impact on the workflow's ability to proceed. It just gives you a way to differentiate what kind of a log message this is. So as I mentioned before, the try area was collapsed. So if I click on Objective 2, now I see my Objective 2 sequence here. And notice if I rename this to Objective 2 stuff and scroll back down here, you can see my exception area is now collapsed. And if I click on that, by clicking on log message here, now my catch area has been expanded and my Objective 2 stuff is collapsed. So this try catch contains 3 different sections, each of which can contain a top-level activity. If I try to drag another activity in here, it will automatically create a sequence for me. So just bear in mind that in order to have multiple activities in any of these sections, you need to wrap them with a sequence. I'm going to right-click to delete this, Control X, delete this sequence, and click to paste my log message back in because I'm getting sidetracked a little bit. What's important to understand is that when this try-catch activity is executing, it's first going to try everything in this try section, and if it encounters an error, instead of just throwing its hands up and stopping, it's going to drop into this catch section and do whatever is contained inside here. Of course, all I'm doing here is logging a message, but that's enough to what we call trap the error and allow the robot to continue on through Objective 3 and complete the workflow. Let's give it a try and see what happens. There we go. The robot went away and came back. And now when I click on output, you'll see that I see the Objective 1 line. It says Objective 2 had an error, which is the result of our catch block executing. And now you can see that we've successfully accomplished Objective 3 as well. Hopefully that gives you a good understanding of what the try-catch activity is all about. Anytime you expect to do something risky, you can wrap it in a try-catch activity, try the risky thing inside this block, and handle the error in an elegant way inside this catch area here. And if the error is non-fatal, that will allow the robot to continue on and achieve the rest of the workflow. In the previous video, we learned how we can use the try-catch block to try something risky and do something special in this catch area if something goes wrong in the try area. And the objective behind that is to elegantly handle any errors that arise in this try area and allow the robot to continue on and complete the workflow. What if we do if the error is bad enough that we should not proceed with the rest of our workflow? We can handle it in an elegant way, maybe writing to the log or connecting to a database and inserting some data or creating files, things like that. But afterwards, if we don't want to proceed, we shouldn't just swallow that error. We should allow it to bubble up and cause the robot to stop. There are a few ways to do this. One option is to go to the activities and type in terminate. And you'll see that we have this error handling terminate workflow. If I was to drag this in, you'll notice that it's asking me to put in an exception or a reason. So for exception, I could simply type in the name of this exception that we trapped, which is called exception. So I would do this. And if I run the robot, we'll see what happens. You can see that I get my error. And if we examine the output, we can see our warning message, Objective 2 had an error, and the robot stopped before it went on to Objective 3. I'm not very happy with that ugly error dialog though, so let's see if we can do something different. One problem with using terminate workflow is that you're creating a chance for your robot to have many different points of exit instead of one main point of exit. And over time, if your robot gets complex, you can forget that some of those terminate workflows exist, and it can be harder to manage the robot over time. So let's explore something different. I'm clicking on terminate workflow and hitting delete. And instead, I'm going to go to activities here and type in the word throw. Now you can see we have two options, throw and rethrow. Rethrow is used when you want to simply rethrow the existing exception you encountered in your try-catch block. Throw is used when you want to create a brand new exception and throw that instead. Let's give that one a try. I'll click and drag it in, and notice it's asking me to supply an exception. I could just reuse the existing exception that we trapped right here, but that would essentially be the same as using rethrow. What I'm going to do instead is click on these three buttons and use a little bit of VB code. I'll type in new exception and open parentheses. Inside these parentheses, I'll open some double quotes and type in whatever I want. Something bad happened. So now I've created a brand new exception with some text in it. I'll click OK. And now when I run the robot, notice I get a similar error dialog, but instead of all that crazy text I got before, my exception is pretty simple. It says something bad happened. So hopefully you can see that you now have the ability to trap errors and then either rethrow that error or throw a new error, or maybe analyze that error you trapped and throw a different, more simple error. If I jump down here to the bottom left and examine my output, you can see that I get the warning from the error we trapped, and then I get this final error that bubbled up to the top that says something bad happened. I personally don't like the default error dialog that pops up, so I wouldn't want to show that to my end users. So my tendency, as I zoom out here, is usually to, instead of using a simple sequence to wrap my whole process, I will use a try-catch block instead. So to demonstrate that, I'm going to click on Objective 1, Control-click my try-catch, and Control-click Objective 3, Control-X to cut all of those, and then right-click to delete this main sequence. Now I'll click and drag my try-catch in, click here in the try section, and use Control-V to paste in all my activities. So now instead of a top-level sequence, I've got a top-level try-catch. And I can rename this to the whole process just like I did before. You can see it's showing me a little alert here, and it says that the catch or finally is expected. And that just means I need to scroll to the very bottom in my catches section and click on Add New Catch. Again, instead of trapping any specific exceptions, I'm simply going to trap this generic exception and click the white space. And that's all I need to do to satisfy the need to have a catch. I don't actually have to put anything in here. You can see that my try is a sequence, so I'll click on that to expand it and rename this to all the work. So now when I go back down here to my catch and expand the catch, you can see that my try section is collapsed and says all the work. So let's run the robot and make sure it still works. Notice this time, no error dialog popped up. Let's look at the output. We see that Objective 2 trapped its error and logged its warning, but we have essentially swallowed up the exception that we threw after we logged that. So if I click on all the work, and look at my try catch for objective 2. And let's actually rename that to try objective 2. When I click to expand my exception area, you can see that we're still throwing this new exception that something bad happened. But as you recall, we never saw that when we ran the robot. The reason why is because we have this catch on our main try catch, but we're not doing anything inside there. So let's click to add an activity. In this case, I'll just use a message box. And I'll click and drag that message box in here, open my double quotes, and say, the robot failed, space, and then I'll use plus, and I'll grab this name exception here, because that's the exception we caught, paste that in, and say dot message. So now when we catch an error from anywhere inside of our robot, we're simply going to display a message box that says the robot failed, and then the exception message. So it'll be a little more attractive than the normal error message that pops up. Let's run it and see. There you go. So this message box is a little bit less daunting than just allowing an error to fail and letting the robot stop by itself. Now, of course, you could do something more elegant in here than just presenting a message box. Obviously, you might want to use a log message to keep track of the fact that the robot failed, but hopefully this gives you some good ideas.